2017's Justice League is considered to be one of the biggest missed opportunities in modern cinema, a film which promised to bring together the biggest heroes of DC Comics and usher in a new golden age for the company's cinematic endeavours, but found itself mired in production trouble, resulting in an underwhelming and deeply troubled film. In part 1 of this video series, we discussed George Miller's failed Justice League Mortal project and the factors which led to its creation, production and cancellation. At the end of that video, I mentioned how Warner Bros. Had opted to develop standalone feature films in the vein of Christopher Nolan's successful Dark Knight series, which included a live-action debut for Green Lantern and a rebooted fresh take on Superman. In this video, I want to discuss the developments of the film that became Man of Steel, and another project which was being developed alongside it, Justice League, but not the one you're thinking of. This one, a now scrapped screenplay from writer Will Beall, and how these two projects lay very different foundations for the future of the DC Extended Universe, and ultimately embarked us on a path which led to 2017's Justice League.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
By the time of The Dark Knight's release in 2008, Christopher Nolan had cemented himself as one of Warner Bros.' most entrusted filmmakers, a figure whom many at the studio saw as the future of their live-action DC comic endeavours. The success of The Dark Knight saw an immediate greenlight of a sequel, 2012's The Dark Knight Rises, and during initial conversations on the film's story between Nolan and writer David S. Goyer, did early conversations regarding Superman come to light. As Nolan states in a 2010 interview with Superhero Hype, while David Goyer and myself were putting together the story for another Batman film a few years ago, thrashing out where we might move on from The Dark Knight, we got stuck. We were just sitting there idly chatting and he said, "By the way, I think I know how you would approach Superman," and he told me his take on it. I thought it was really tremendous. It was the first time I'd been able to conceive of how you would address Superman in a modern context. I thought it was a very exciting idea. Soon after, Goyer was hired by Warner Bros. To develop a screenplay for his take on The Man of Tomorrow, with Christopher Nolan also attached to the project as a producer. In October 2010, Deadline reported that Zack Snyder had signed on to direct the project, which the studio hoped would launch not only a new Superman film series, but also the development of more DC Comics motion pictures, with the idea of Justice League still firmly on the table. As a result, in June 2012, just as principal photography of Man of Steel was beginning to conclude, Variety announced that screenwriter Will Beall had been hired to develop a new screenplay for a Justice League film. Beall, who had recently worked on Warner Bros. Gangster Squad, faced a difficult task ahead of him, not only to conceive a new Justice League film that would satisfy the studio and fans, better so than Miller and Mulroney's version did, but also manage to use the world established in Man of Steel to springboard off this new connected universe. Soon after, it was reported that not only would Henry Cavill reprise his role as Superman, but the film would see a lineup comprised of himself and newly recast Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash and Green Lantern, with the film's antagonist heavily rumoured to be Darkseid, with Ben Affleck's name heavily attached as a possible director, after the filmmaker had impressed Warner Bros. With his directing works on Gone Baby Gone and The Town. Furthermore, while it was reported that Beall's story took inspiration from Jerry Conway's 1980 run of Justice League of America, in particular issues 183 to 185, which saw the team face off against Darkseid, little was actually known about the project until late 2017, when The Wrap published an exclusive which summarised much of the script's components. According to The Wrap, the film would introduce the Justice League as established heroes already familiar with one another, not unlike George Miller's version, with a sequence early on establishing Batman and Superman's existing relationship as the pair team up to fight KG Beast and Killer Croc, who were attempting to steal kryptonite on behalf of Lex Luthor, before the sudden appearance of Desaad, who appears and flees through a boom tube with the kryptonite. Prior to this sequence, the film's opening scene would have established the planet Apokolips and its villainous ruler, Darkseid. Soon after, Jon Stewart, the film's Green Lantern, will be introduced via an action sequence in which he and Hawkman attempt to stop Kangaroo, before returning to Owen to discover the dead bodies of much of his fellow Lanterns, who had been massacred on behalf of Darkseid. The first act will conclude with Superman being apprehended by Steppenwolf and a swarm of parademons, who take the fallen hero to Apokolips. With Superman gone, Batman travels to Themyscira to recruit Diana Prince, before calling upon both Green Lantern and Barry Allen, the Flash. With the Lantern Corps and Superman both unable to stop them, Darkseid launches an invasion of Earth, spearheaded by an apocalyptic army and a brainwashed Superman. In a sequence familiar to many DC fans now after Batman v Superman and The Dark Knight Returns, Batman dons a special suit of armour to subdue and fight the Man of Steel, battling his friend before Wonder Woman can release Superman from Desaad's mind control, and Superman rejoins the League in the fight against Darkseid. The League struggles to combat the invading threats, and ultimately, Superman travels through a boom tube where he finds himself some 10 years into the future, in a timeline where Darkseid succeeded and wiped out 80% of the world's population, and only a human resistance led by Batman, Wonder Woman and Lex Luthor keep humanity alive. Superman also discovers that, in this alternate timeline, Bruce and Diana actually have a son together, who they've named Clark Wayne. Lex Luthor reveals to Superman that by mixing the boom tube with the Flash's Speed Force, it could be possible for Barry to travel back in time to before Darkseid's invasion of Earth, warning the League before the events of the film take place. Future Flash ultimately goes back in time to before Darkseid's invasion, warning his younger self of the impending threat before dying in his own arms. With this knowledge in hand, the League are able to travel to Apokolips and rescue Superman before Desaad can brainwash the Man of Steel, and with the aid of the Green Lantern Corps and the Amazonians, prevent Darkseid's invasion from ever succeeding, and therefore preventing this nightmarish future from ever coming to fruition. The script ends with Mercy Graves planning a presidential campaign for Lex Luthor, and Luthor receiving a message from his future self, telling him of Superman's secret identity, Clark Kent. While definitely ambitious, Beall's script could be argued to be a little too complex and convoluted for the first outing for this new Justice League, and in many ways overcomplicated what the initial film needed to be. In early 2013, reports surfaced stating that Warner Brothers were displeased with what Beall had offered them in his screenplay, and had begun considering a huge page 1 rewrite on the entire script, and by the time that Man of Steel was released in June of that year, it appeared that Beall's take on Justice League had been completely discarded. Soon after the film's release, Deadline reported that both Snyder and Goyer had been approached to not only work on a follow-up film to Man of Steel, but also to begin developing a new Justice League film alongside it. With Beall's version of Justice League now officially dead, Snyder and Goyer set about envisaging their grand plan for this newly launched DC cinematic universe, and with the threads established in Man of Steel, the pair began to conceptualise a grand 5-film story arc that would be unlike anything ever seen before, which we'd begin to learn about in Batman v Superman, before seeing the grand culmination of this in Justice League. Or at least, that was what was going to happen until it wasn't. Hey everyone, thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on the video and also leave a comment down below as well. Let me know what you think about Will Beall's Justice League screenplay from 2013. Would you like to have seen it as a movie? And how does it relate to the George Miller script from 2008 and to the Zack Snyder Joss Whedon film that we ultimately got? Which would you like to have seen most? You can vote up in the iCard in the top corner and also tell me in the comments down below as well. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. We make weekly videos like the one you're watching right now. And there should be some more videos on screen that you might also enjoy if you did indeed enjoy this one, including part 1 of our Justice League series looking at George Miller's film from 2007 and 8, and also my review of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter, just at Owen Likes Comics, and in 2 weeks time, the next Justice League video, which is going to be the finale of this 3-point series, is going to be looking at Zack Snyder's original vision for the DCEU, and what he was going to do in Justice Leagues 1 and 2, he intended originally for there to be 2 films. So we're going to look at what he wanted to do and what ultimately changed. But that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and until then, take care and keep reading.